Hi there, I'm Don.
And hi, I'm Cindy. Welcome to Pearls of Liberty. This Labor Day weekend, August 31st, 2013. Hope that you're having a good weekend so far. And Don wanted to talk a bit today about UCC and becoming free from the trap that has been set for us all.
I just realized that this is a perfect topic for Labor Day because this is really what it's about. And as of 1933 and Franklin Delano Roosevelt's New Deal, FDR's New Deal, the Americans' labor as a labor force, your labor became surety on the national debt. In 1933, the United States went into bankruptcy. You weren't told because they thought you wouldn't like it. You were classified as an enemy combatant, meaning that they could lie to you, and instituted a new system, the New Deal, by which, at which time the United States dollar was replaced by the Federal Reserve note. It's basically a counterfeit dollar, and it's worthless in value, and all it is a promise to pay, and that promise is backed by your labor. So you basically are operating as a debt slave. All of us are if you are in the system. But the good news is that there is a way out. Patriots have known about it for some time, and there have been attempts to sort of package a solution, but it's not really easy to package because you have to really understand what you're doing in order to make this work for you, the way to get free. But in a nutshell, here's what it is. It's when that New Deal was put into effect, that made you a debt slave, that actually relied on the earlier ruling of United States citizenship, which happened right after the Civil War, that was somewhere in the late 1800s, where the 17th Amendment made you
14th Amendment.
That's correct. Yeah, the 14th Amendment that made Americans citizens, and that took you from being the status of a sovereign to being in a status of a creature of the state. So whereas Americans were once sovereigns, if you were a 14th Amendment citizen, you became a creature of the state. And that entity of the state is a legal fiction, and it does not have constitutional rights because it again is inside of the system, not outside of the system. It works for the system does not work for it. So that's not where you want to be. You want to regain your sovereign status, and they did provide a way. Now with that bankruptcy, the bankruptcy in 1933, it's administered through the Uniform Commercial Code, and the Uniform Commercial Code had to have a way out for people that wanted to retain their sovereignty and their constitutional rights. So that is actually UCC section 1-308. It used to be 1-207 or something, but now it's 1-308. They changed it around to prevent people from making systems out of it. Anyway, what that stipulates is that you are able to insist that you want to be under common law, and under common law there has to be an injured party. So all of the fraudulent contracts and all of the bankruptcy administration of law, that's all statutory law, not common law, that is outside of that one section. So what you want to do is tell the judge that you are reserving your rights under section 1-308. And if he tries to go past that, get out of that, you have to ask him if he's making a ruling that would say that this section does not apply in your case. And if he does, if he is so foolish to make such a ruling, then he can be overruled. He would be overruled because that is actually the law, that you do have the right to insist on it. So it's all about knowing your rights and insisting on your rights. And yes, this Labor Day holiday, don't let your labor be stolen by the cabal, by the banksters, by the people that have been gunning for Americans ever since the founding of the freest nation on the earth, which is now a nation of death slaves. So that's one. We have one link here. You can find them many places. I found another one that we might also include as a link that when I read it, it just really helped crystallize things for me. This is not that, but this is a good one because it is actually a little bit more comprehensive. So anyway, and this is not in any way legal advice. This is just what I have discovered personally about the system, and I would not even say that I have anything more than a theoretical knowledge of it at this point. So everybody do your own due diligence, and this is just pointing in a direction of something that I thought might be useful to you.
That is all very interesting stuff. And we don't often, neither of us read Removing the Shackles on a regular basis, but we both happened to see this article, and we were talking about it, and we thought there were some significant ideas here. Why I am no longer a light worker. And the point of this article is that people who have wanted to be light workers, and that's more along the New Age spiritual dimension, but this sometimes can happen to Christians as well. The people who are practicing light workers were striving with entities, and they were partnering with entities that they thought were good, and they were waking up in the morning more tired than they had been when they went to bed, and just sorting through the idea that what they were partnering with were really not positive entities, so to speak. And we were just talking about it from a Christian point of view. The article suggests being kind of spiritually neutral and not not having a dualistic idea about life. I don't know how any human being can step away completely from dualism, because we're wired that way as people. I mean, with our left and right brains, and I personally don't see stepping out of that kind of a mindset. But when we can at least identify what spiritual entities really do have our best interests at heart, it really boils down to love, and God is love. So I know Don has some ideas about this topic as well.
Yeah, from a slightly different perspective, but really basically completely agreeing with what Cindy just said. What seems to happen to people if they don't have a Christian grounding, and I mean really grounding, not an indoctrination, but a really deep understanding of the God of the Bible and His love, etc. If they don't have that, then if they get drawn into this battle between good and evil and the cabal and the good guys and all this stuff that's happening in the world today, and they get disillusioned because people make compromises in order to get ahead, and the waters get muddied, that things aren't black and white anymore, they don't know what's true, and then they realize, well, wait a minute, these guys that are working, they actually see the guys that were working what they thought were good guys were actually bad guys, and some of the bad guys were actually doing some good things, and it gets all muddled because as the higher you get in this pyramid, Illuminati, whatever you want to call it, and I do believe that they are Satanists at the top, what ends up happening is that these guys are amoral. They do things for the purposes of power because with power, they can exercise their will, and then they become God. So outside of the God of the Bible, that's what happens, and you can't keep a moral compass. So there really is, you begin to see the world as yin and yang, and a black and white checkerboard that are just ways to maneuver from one source of energy to another source of energy, the black to the white and the white to the black and back again. And once you don't identify with either the white or the black, and you see that, you begin to, in your mind, sit above it and see that it's all tools that you can use. Well, that's when the guys get completely corrupt. So whenever somebody says, no, I'm no longer a light worker, I say, well, you've fallen. You no longer have a moral compass. And hopefully that is a learning experience for you, and you can get to the point where you know that you need a personal relationship with the God of the universe, and through his Son, Jesus Christ. That is the way that is provided for us to come into union with the divine. And the mistake that people make of there being a polar opposite power of the devil is completely false, because the devil is just a little pipsqueak compared to the master and creator and the Lord of the universe, the one who is all in all, completely omnipresent, omniscient, and within everything. So, and the devil is not that way in any sense. So really this idea of going beyond good and evil is a deception, ultimately, and it needs to be seen as such. So that's what I'm saying here, and hopefully the people that come to this place can turn to God, and then you are working within His strength, and He doesn't cause you to be overcome by working too hard. He gives rest to the weary, and He brings refreshment to your soul, so that it's not a fight that you can't endure. And that's what this person needs, and I hope that they find it.
So, what you were saying about that there really is, I don't even like to use the phrase light side and dark side, because that is too much like yin and yang, but really I think it breaks down to there are those who are serving God and His purposes, and God is love, and there are those who are serving, whether intentionally or not, those who are in rebellion against God. And I think from what you said, some of both the light workers who are maybe not completely aware of what the real struggle is, and also the members of the Illuminati who believe that they're above the struggle, are both susceptible to being drawn in by those who are in rebellion against God, because they are so very deceptive. They don't tell the truth about who they are. They don't tell the truth about what they're doing. And the Bible says that the devil is the father of all lies.
Yeah, absolutely. The deeper the only way to really fight the battle is to go deeper and deeper into God. And unless you do that, you're operating in partial awareness, and partial awareness can always be steered one direction or the other, and the enemy is always trying to deceive, and God is always trying to draw you into more truth, that truth being love. So that's the ultimate. So, there's counterfeits of that, of course, but those that know Him, know His voice, and are drawn to Him. So yeah, there is no neutrality, and that's the illusion here, is that there's a place of neutrality. Now, there is a place of neutrality that I do, but it's different from what I'm talking about, so I want to clarify that. A true place of neutrality is where you are neutral in terms of another person's will. You don't try to overpower their will. But the position of neutrality in which you say that there is no such thing as good and evil, well, that's false. So those are the two different types of neutrality. One is true and one is false.
And kind of in the same vein, but a somewhat different idea, another topic that seems to be very relevant to what people are going through now is this idea of positive thinking, releasing higher vibrations, and the cabal trying to use fear and anger and hatred to generate luge, which feeds demonic entities. And just for the sake of clarity, demonic entities are those who are in rebellion against God. So Don kind of wanted to just frame this idea in the context of faith, and just because there's a deeper and more reliable foundation looking at it from this point of view.
Yeah, and with this Syria thing going on right now, it's a perfect opportunity to either get into a fear mode or get into a faith mode. And the faith mode that we're encouraging people to get into is to say, no, we won't be drawn into war. Know that there is deception, and point out what that deception is, point out the false flags, point out the truth, and then the lies won't succeed, and we won't be drawn into this dark path. But the enemy is always seeking to increase fear and say, oh, it would be wise if we did this. Oh, we need to just go in for a preemptive strike. And we got to show them we care, blah, blah, whatever excuse that you use. If it's responding out of fear that something bad might happen, ultimately that's anti-faith. But if you're responding from faith, believing on solid evidence that good can come of it, then that's the opposite path. So that really is a choice that we all have many times a day, and sometimes we have it together corporately as a nation or a people group, and that's kind of what's happening now. So yeah, I like Rick Joyner's quote that fear is faith for the things you don't want. Why would you want to go there? So we have some friends that are aware of a lot of things that are going on in the world, and we were having a discussion the other night about how to prepare, prepping, and that kind of thing. And some of us saw us going down a scenario that could get really dark, and we ourselves didn't see that same scenario. We see some good things happening, and we want to concentrate on those. Doesn't mean that we don't think it's wise to have some stock and to prepare a plan for the future, but our plan is kind of longer term, and we don't see catastrophic things happening on the near horizon. At least not something that we couldn't overcome with having 30 days of food reserves, etc., on hand. So we're prepared in that sense, but in the sense of really getting dark really, really quick, nuclear war, whatever, that's not where we're at. This is just something that everybody needs to tune into themselves. But all I'm saying is that check yourself, find out whether you're being driven by fear or faith. And a lot of times Christians can get into a fear mode, and one of the symptoms of that fear mode is having the Lord's got to come back real soon because things are getting really, really bad. Whenever Christians have gotten into that mindset, it's actually really aided the forces of darkness. That's the way you had Christians thinking in Germany when Hitler was at his worst and doing the atrocities that he did. The Christians were convinced that Jesus had to come back very soon, all except for some like Dietrich Bonhoeffer, who knew that he was called to stand against it. So we encourage you to have faith and stand strong for the good stuff.
Absolutely. And another way to look at this is faith versus fear, but it's also valid to approach this concept with love versus fear, because the Bible says perfect love casts out all fear. And for people who believe that they're light workers, harking back to that other topic just for a moment, if you can question what am I serving? The Bible says God is love. So, and Jesus said, there's no, maybe it was Paul, that the entire law is fulfilled in love, and that when you act out of love, you are fulfilling the law. So it's not as crucial to know all the statutes and all the commandments and everything that's written in the Bible as it is. Now, I'm not discounting any of that at all, but what is a higher law is the law of love, and that when you are truly acting out of love, you are not going to break any of God's laws.
Yeah, no, that actually is Paul.
So, yeah, that's it. If we can walk in love, and by walking in love, we avoid harming people, and perfect love casts out all fear. So that is really the ideal way to live, if we can manage to let go of our ego enough to live in love.
Yeah, and you have to be in touch with your spirit about all of this too. And love doesn't mean that it doesn't mean blanket acceptance. Loving with the heart of God does mean standing in the truth and wanting and wishing the best for people around you or in the circumstance or whatever. It doesn't mean closing a blind eye and wishing things were different than they really are.
Sure. And this is an older article this week in different places, or it might have even been last week. People have been, even in discussions, people have been bringing this up to me. Well, organic foods aren't really as high quality as they're presented as being, and it's really just a waste to buy organic, and other foods.
You could buy a Porsche instead.
Can we? So, it's organic foods aren't perfect, and there are some kinds of chemicals that are used in the growing of organic foods, but it's still very beneficial to buy organic and eat organic foods. And one thing that you will not miss when you buy something that is truly organic, and there are different organic labels, but one thing that is true of all of them is if you are buying something with an organic label, it is not going to contain GMOs, unless the people are lying, which I can't absolutely rule out. But genetically modified organisms are genetically modified to accommodate certain kinds of pesticides. So if those pesticides are not used on a crop, that crop would not be genetically modified.
Well, not exactly. It's not a, yeah, you could have pesticides be used on a crop and then it wouldn't be labeled organic, but the whole thing with pesticides of GMO foods is that the pesticide is actually in the genome of the food itself, and that's why the food is resistant to the pests, the bugs, the mold, whatever it is, that there's some kind of fungicide or some kind of an insecticide in the actual genes of the plant. Yeah, it causes the insect's guts to erupt, and it causes your guts to erupt if you leak gut syndrome and all that, if you eat those things. But if you have organic food, USDA organic, it can't be GMO, which means it can't have all of that stuff in it, let alone pesticides sprayed on it. on both counts. So, yeah, they might be a little bit lax in whatever testing they do of surface pesticides, but if a product, if the food is GMO, yeah, no, it can't pass. It's screened out right away. It's easily classified as such. Now, it doesn't mean that there can't be some genes that might have gotten in there on the wild. That does happen, but by and large, USDA organic, you can be assured that it doesn't have GMO.
So just that alone, because we don't have GMO labeling, we do have organic labeling, and you can determine that something is not GMO by purchasing something that's organic. And this is a, you know, probably things that most anybody listening to this video already knows, but Planet InfoWars article, Buying Organic Food is Another Form of Voting with Your Dollars, and its success has been well documented. And this article affirms that organic foods are supposed to be pesticide free, and they are non-GMO. So hopefully you have a source of at least beef and chicken. Even Costco has ground beef and chicken that are organic. So we're pretty happy about that, and hopefully you can avoid those hot dogs for your Labor Day cookout, and maybe have some organic hamburgers and chicken.
Yeah, and this is another great example of being able to see the good side, or having a faith outlook instead of a fear outlook, because it would be easy to be discouraged and say, oh gosh, the organic label doesn't really mean anything, and they can't label GMOs. We lost that in California. They cheated, and Monsanto cheated, and we lost, and gosh, we'll never know, so we might as well just eat, drink, and whatever, because tomorrow we die, and the GMOs are going to gobble us up, and oh my goodness, and you know, then that's a downward spiral. So what we're doing is we're pointing out to you that there is a way with existing laws that you can, with wisdom, find stuff that's good for you, and you're empowered. So that gets you in the faith mode.
Sure. And if you have to drink whiskey, find some that's been aged at least 20 years before they started to have GMO.
Good point. Good point. I never thought of that.
And you'll be all set for a great Labor Day weekend party. And we do hope that you do have a great Labor Day weekend. And thanks for joining us for this week's Pearls of Liberty.
And we remind you again to see the world the way that it really is. See yourself in it. Walk your walk. You are the one you've been waiting for.